Good morning. Thank you to the organizers. Thank you all for coming. It's really great to be here together today. The title of my talk is, Microbe-Inclusive Mathematics, Accounting for Host-Microbe Interactions in Ecology and Evolutionary Theory. So microbe-inclusive mathematics, what is this all about? Let's start by imagining a red insect on a green leaf, okay? Here it is. So we can see it very well. Predators can see it very well too. So being red makes this insect very exposed to the danger of being eaten and reduces its chances of survival. Now, imagine that this insect is not red, but green, like this one. Well, in this case, predators will struggle seeing it, and so being green makes the insect more adapted to its environment. But now, how can we get a green insect in the first place? One possibility is that the green color comes from a mutation in the genes of the insect. This means that a new insect is born with a slightly different DNA, and this difference makes the insect green. And if you have taken some genetic classes, you know that we can predict whether the babies of this insect will be green or red, depending on their genetics, and how many generations it will take for the whole population to turn green. But now, what if I tell you that the green color doesn't come from a gene, but from a microbe? A virus, a bacteria, or some other tiny thing that lives inside the insect. And I know that saying microbes may remind you of something bad, like pathogens that bring diseases and make us sick. But the truth is, the vast majority of microbes are actually good ones. And nearly every organism on Earth lives in symbiosis with a multitude of microbes that are very important for the species survival, including ourselves. So microbes can help us digest food, like the microbes we have in our gut. They can train our immune system, and the presence of this microbe can make the difference between life or death. But now, classic theories that we have used so far, they are insufficient to explain adaptation driven by microbes. And this is because there are several differences between genes and microbes. Adaptation through genes occurs through mechanisms such as mutation or parent-to-offspring transmissions, which can be modeled according to classic evolutionary theories. Now, microbes can also mutate and can also be acquired from the parents. But microbes can also be acquired after birth, for example, from the environment or through contact with other individuals. And the microbial composition within an organism can change during the host lifetime, for example, through interaction with the host or through interaction with other microbial species. This means that to understand adaptation driven by microbes, we need to combine evolutionary theories that tell us how mutation and parent-to-offspring transmission work with ecological theories that tell us who interact with whom, and create more eco-evolutionary theory, or as I like to say, a microbe-inclusive theory that acknowledges that microbes can be driving evolutionary forces and that accounts for all these additional characteristics of microbes in driving these processes. So why is this important? Well, biological invasion is important for many reasons, actually, but today I'm going to talk about biological invasion. It's a global threat and a serious ecological and economic problem. There are many invasive species. Even here in Israel, for example, we have fire ants or Indian myna, and these species can be extremely disruptive to the ecosystem. They compete with native species, they destroy agricultural land, and they can become terrible pests in urban spaces. And now the point is that most of the time we don't completely understand how do these species become so well adapted to their new environment. In many cases, we can predict whether a species will become invasive or not. And because of this lack of predictability, invasive species management can be hard and difficult. And so we can start asking, what is it that our theories are missing? Maybe the microbe play a role. Take invasive tree, for example. Seems clear that if we put this tree in a soil which is filled with good microbes, it will be easier for this tree to adapt to its new environment, as the microbe will provide to the tree the nutrients it needs. But now classic theories ignore the microbes. Classic invasion theory changes in the invasive host population depends on the characteristic of the invasive population and on its interaction with a native population. So we have two equations, say it in a simple way, one for the invasive plant and one for the native plant. But now, how would things change if we consider the microbes? And this is actually what I ask myself all the time in my research. How would things change if microbes are there? What I do is I try to take a holistic approach that considers not all invasive and native plants, but also the microbes. So now what we have are multiple equations that are linked to each other. And I study, so what I do is I write down this equation, I analyze them, and I perform simulations to understand the dynamics that they predict. So let me give you some examples on how microbes can facilitate or prevent invasion. So let's take first a native plant population and its own native microbial community. So it seems clear that the presence of many native healthy trees in the soil, of many healthy native trees, will help the good bacteria in the soil to grow. So, and if we have a very healthy microbial community, what happens if we add an invasive plant there? Well, this invasive plant may benefit from the community, which can help the invasive plant to become adapted, invasive, and then native plants may suffer from it. So in this case, invasion is occurring because of these pre-existing microbes in the soil. So a classic theory will predict invasion failure, while when microbes are taken into account, we realize that invasion is a possibility. Microbes can also prevent invasion. For example, if we have some microbes that are not harmful to native plants, which are used to it, but they can be very harmful to invasive plants. In this case, the invasive plant may get sick and fail to establish. And things can get more complicated than that, as microbes can also compete with each other or evolve to be more beneficial or less harmful, depending on their interaction with the host. What I did is to develop a theoretical framework that can help us to explore these dynamics to see how host microbe interactions can affect the invasion dynamics. So what we have here are invasive and native plants, PN and PI, interacting with their microbes, and this interaction can be beneficial or harmful to different degrees. And here we can see multiple combinations. So red would be harmful, and blue would be beneficial. And I don't want to go into detail here, but the idea is just to understand that we have really a lot of complexity here, and the complexity and richness of these possible scenarios make us understand that microbes should be explicitly considered to explain the variety of biological observations that we find. And that mathematics can also help us to understand these systems at a deeper level, to explore possibilities and understand how we can test then our hypothesis empirically. So if you think of the biodiversity on our planet and of its capacity to adapt to new challenges, such as global change like climate warming, pollution, or biological invasion, remember that microbes can play a huge role in it. And perhaps allowing them to be represented by their own equation in mathematical models can give us the innovative solutions we desperately need to preserve the health of our planet and of all its occupants. Last but not least, I would like just to thank my supervisor, Oren Kolodny, and the whole Kolodny Lab for their continued support, guidance, and friendship. I would like to thank my daughter for helping me out with the drawing when I got stuck with these microbes, and especially a huge thank to the Azrieli Foundation for believing in me and funding this research.